So, my girlfriend was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine, and it wasn't hers either. I know, take a second. I wish I was joking, because when I first heard the words, I'm pregnant, I felt my heart drop, but not for the usual reasons. Not because I didn't want a baby or wasn't ready. It dropped because there was no way she could be pregnant. Let me backtrack a bit. But first, by the way, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I love seeing where all of you are tuning in from. All right, buckle up, because this story gets so twisted, I still question whether it really happened. But I promise you, it did. So at the time, I'd been dating this girl, let's call her Lena, for just under 2 years. We met at a mutual friend's game night. She beat me in Connect 4, roasted me for it, and somehow that turned into dinner, then dating, then eventually she moved into my apartment. Now, Lena was the type of person who always had a story. Like, she couldn't just say, I had a rough day. No. It would be, I had to stop a pigeon from attacking an old man on the train while my coworker was having a panic attack and my Uber got stolen. Dramatic, extra, kind of exhausting sometimes, if I'm honest. But I loved her. Or I thought I did. Now, here's something you need to know up front. Lena couldn't have kids. That was something we talked about earlier in the relationship. She'd had complications from a surgery when she was younger, some kind of ovarian torsion emergency situation, and she told me flat out, I can't get pregnant. Like, medically impossible. It wasn't a secret. She was open about it. Cried a little when she told me the first time, but I reassured her, like, if we ever want kids, there are other ways. And that was that. We moved on. Until she sat me down one Tuesday night, eyes wide, hands shaking, and whispered, I'm pregnant. And listen, I was stunned, like the earth stopped turning for a second. I laughed at first. I thought she was messing with me, but she looked dead serious. I said, that's not possible, right? And she just stared at me like I was the crazy one. She pulls out a pregnancy test from her purse. I don't know why it was in her purse, but there it was, positive. Now at this point, I start spiraling because I know I didn't get her pregnant. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe she cheated. Maybe she was lying about being infertile this whole time and now she's caught. But when I asked her who's the father, she shook her head and said, I don't know. I don't think it's mine. Let that sink in. Not, I don't think it's yours. I don't think it's mine. I actually sat there blinking, thinking she misspoke. I was like, Lena, what are you saying right now? She goes, I don't think I'm the mother. At this point, I'm convinced she's having some kind of breakdown, like full-on psychological meltdown. I'm about to call someone, her mom, a therapist, I don't even know, because she's saying things that make no sense. Then she opens her phone, shows me an email from a fertility clinic, and my stomach just drops. The email was a confirmation from a facility called Bright Hope Reproductive Solutions, and it mentioned the embryo transfer, a confirmation of Lena's name as a legal surrogate, and a reminder about confidentiality until placement. I look at her. She's crying now. She says, I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. I signed up to be a surrogate for money. I needed it. I thought it wouldn't matter, but the clinic says there was a mix-up. A mix-up. Apparently, the embryo that was supposed to be implanted wasn't the couple's embryo. And it wasn't hers either. It was someone else's entirely. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So let me break this down for you. Lena secretly signs up to be a surrogate, uses her body without telling me. A clinic screws up and implants a random embryo into her. And now she's pregnant with a baby that has nothing to do with either of us. I don't even have words. I was just numb. I asked her, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you tell me? And she said the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I didn't want you to worry. Girl, you're pregnant with a mystery baby and you didn't want me to worry? But it gets worse. She tells me the clinic, Bright Hope, has been trying to resolve the issue quietly. The couple who was supposed to receive that embryo had no idea it had been used, and the couple who was meant to receive Lena's pregnancy, also no idea. So now there's a baby growing inside my girlfriend, and nobody knows who the real parents are. DNA tests confirmed that Lena wasn't genetically related to the fetus, and obviously neither was I. But due to surrogate laws in our state, get this, Lena was still considered the legal mother unless the bio parent stepped forward and claimed the child. You can't make this up. We met with a lawyer, multiple actually. Turns out there were at least 3 potential families that had embryos stored at Bright Hope Bitweek. So now they had to run tests, track paperwork, review lab logs, and cross-reference everything. And while all this is happening, Lena's growing a human and emotionally unraveling. She went from excited to panicked to distant. She stopped sleeping, started snapping at me over nothing. And to be fair, I wasn't handling it great either. I felt betrayed. Not because she was pregnant, but because she made a life-changing medical decision without even talking to me. I mean, imagine waking up one day and your partner's like, oh, hey, I'm secretly hosting someone else's baby. That's when things started breaking down between us. We fought a lot. And then one day, she just left. Left me a note, said she needed to get her head straight, that she was going to stay with the cousin in another state. She was 6 months pregnant. 2 weeks later, I got a call. It was a lawyer from Bright Hope. They'd located the biological parents, a couple from New Jersey. Their embryo had been accidentally implanted in Lena. The couple wanted to meet her. I said I didn't know where she was, and I meant it. She wasn't answering texts, calls, nothing. Turns out, Lena didn't go to her cousin's place. She went to a tabloid, sold her story to a gossip magazine, framed herself as the surrogate who was betrayed by science. It was everywhere. Headlines, online articles, TikToks. She even did a podcast. And in every story, she left me out. Not one mention of me. That was the last straw. When she finally reached out, she wanted to catch up. I said no. I told her I was done. And I was. I heard from one of the lawyers later that the baby was born healthy. The biological parents were able to adopt him legally. And Lena, last I saw, she moved to LA and started a blog, called herself a modern fertility advocate. And me, I started therapy because I realized I was in love with an illusion, a person who never really let me in, who saw me as a placeholder, not a partner. I still think about that baby sometimes. A child born from a clerical error, raised by parents who never knew they were going to have him, and carried by a woman who couldn't even tell the truth to the person she lived with. So yeah, my girlfriend was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine, and it wasn't hers either. What would you have done if you were me? Could you have stayed through something like that? Let me know in the comments, because this was one twist I never saw coming.